My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 57, or episode 5 of season 2. As a reminder, we're the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst and hoops player, an infamous rapper, a resident influencer and IG star, just shooting the breeze talking UCF sports. Remember to like and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and check out the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle, Big 12 Huddle, Fourth in Florida, and New Stream. All right, today we have a very, very special podcast with a special guest. But before I bring him on the stage, let's bring in the rest of the team, starting with Mr. Ben Stout. How's it going?
What's up? What's up? We're a few men down tonight, but I'm excited to talk about UCF football. We went 1-0 in the bye week, and absolutely we're gonna bring it to Colorado on a big stage this weekend. I got a good feeling. Absolutely,
it's gonna be an exciting weekend. As you said, yeah, we are down Roger, we are down Trey, and we are down Nobra, but of course we have Mr. Josh Lazar. How's it going?
Hey, doing good. I was going to do some. I was actually going to go to John Fogerty and talk, and put me in, coach. I'm ready to play, but decided nah, I'm good. We're pretty right off the bat, raring to go. We have a great show for you today, and I can't wait for Alan to host it. So let's get it started.
Yeah, and as I alluded to, we have a very special guest, someone that is a big part of the UCF family. He's a former Hall of Fame UCF pitcher, a former All-American, so very decorated athlete. And he was one of the coaches on the recent Lake Mary Little League team that won the Little League World Series championship. So without further ado, let me bring on Kyle. How's it going?
Hey guys, we're excited to be here. It's been a fun summer, and I want to talk UCF baseball. I want to talk Lake Mary Little League. It'll be a good time. Let's have some fun tonight.
Absolutely. Ben, I know you're friends with Kyle. So why don't you kind of take us through and ask some questions here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off, Kyle, thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate your time, and it's not only great to have you on the show just because of the great career that you had at UCF, but obviously as we've already talked about a little bit, just the amazing season, an amazing year that you and your family, your son Landon, and the rest of your family and his teammates and everything, the team that you coach has had, and it's kind of captured captured the nation, if you will. Certainly captured Central Florida, but captured the nation. So it's been such an exciting year for you. So I really appreciate your time and coming on.
No, for sure. Like I said, since we got back in town, we've had a chance to speak to a lot of different people. And, anytime, actually today I spoke to a UCF journalist that's in school. So like anytime I can help out with UCF alum, UCF student base, I definitely want to be on here and share the news with you guys.
That's awesome, man. Well, we appreciate it. And so obviously we're going to get into your crazy year and everything that's happened over the last 6 months. But obviously we're a UCF podcast, and we want to chat about your Hall of Fame career at UCF as well. So can you just give us some insights? You were a 2-time All-State pitcher at Lake Mary High School, and, your kind of journey to decide to go to UCF. And then just some insights about how you evolved as a player throughout your stellar career as a Knight.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you've been around the UCF program. We're about the same age, so UCF has been a top athletic program for a long time, and especially on the baseball side, at the time, UCF baseball was probably one of their top programs. So when I had the opportunity from Lake Mary to play for a top 25 team, being so local and being able to have my family be there to support me, it was definitely a choice, and it's something I was definitely going to not pass on. Looking back on that time, Ryan, I have a twin brother, Ryan, who was a catcher, my battery mate. He was probably more highly talented, highly recruited than I was back then. So being competitors, we always wanted to, push each other. So, we wanted to play together. So and UCF afforded that opportunity to us. So it was special, and, we enjoyed our time at the university.
Yeah. And you got to play for a guy in Jay Bergman and some of the, good coaches at that time, obviously a legend in Jay Bergman, and even had young Rich Wallace that you got to not only play with, but I think his first year coaching was your sophomore year where you were as well. So talk a little bit about how, just when a guy like Rich, who we've known, you and I have known since we came in, as you mentioned, came in to UCF at the same time in 2002. Somebody, I remember texting back and forth with all my teammates when it was announced that he became the head coach, and it was just such a great feeling because it was one of us, right? And so how about when that was announced and he was able to become the head coach at UCF, a program that you and I and we all love so much?
No, of course. Like I said, like you mentioned, I went to Lake Mary High School. I played for Coach Alan Tuttle. Coach Tuttle had a field named after him, and then Coach Bergman had a field named after him at UCF. So that's hard to say that you play for two schools and two programs that had coaches named after him. And I mentioned that in my speech last year at the Hall of Fame. I mean, so I was afforded a great opportunity. Then from Rich's perspective, he's he came in there I was a freshman, and he was a senior. You could tell he had that coach's aura. He was a mature player, played 4 years himself, catcher to pitcher. So he knew all the aspects of the game. So, once we found out, well, there's been some good coaches. There's been some good coaches that have come through UCF since, Coach Bergman left, but it wasn't an alumni. It wasn't somebody that the fan base, not the fan base, but the players and, other people I know the quality of person Rich is. So when that got announced, we were so excited, and we're looking forward to, the long term. He's going to be here a long time. He's already mentioned it. I see him at all the football games. Ever since he's taken back over, I talk to him quite frequently. When he was away, we both had different things going on in our life. But now that he's back in town, my job, and I keep telling him, all the guys around, the players are getting older. We have kids that are getting closer to the recruiting age, and we want to make sure that all these local kids stay home. And that's my job. And I feel like, as a UCF alumni, I want to make this program top 10, top 5 year in and year out. And with Rich there, he's not going anywhere. He said it. It's a dream job for him. So we're excited for him and to see where it goes.
No doubt.
I want to ask a quick question, because I'm around the same age as all of you as well, and I remember you pitching amazingly for several years before the Red Sox tried to take you. I want to talk. I got to talk about your brother as well. So you and your brother actually were on the same field, on the same team in a game together at least once, right?
No, it was. I mean, like I said, I was my freshman year. I had the opportunity to be the closer coming in, the late innings, and a lot of times, Ryan and Butera were both catchers back, the first 2 or 3 years, kind of just back and forth. But I had numerous times, and I requested anytime I was starter, especially as a sophomore, and I wanted Ryan to catch me, not because I felt he had a great skill set, but having that person on the other end, people see us since we were little kids. We would have our own little, language. We would push each other, and we would, bicker about certain things. But it was something that I needed on the mound. I wanted him to, tell me when I did something right or tell me when I did something wrong. And other catchers might not do that, So, I was lucky enough to have that. And that was actually kind of one of the reasons I actually got away from pro ball. Growing up, as team players, Ryan and I were really good teammates. Team players, we cared about the team more than individual results. So, once I stepped away and got into the pro ball kind of thing, it became too individualized. You lose the team part of it, at least until you get back to, the MLB clubs or if you're in affiliation, in the minors or, different lower levels in the pro ball, it's a different thing. It's individualized. So, getting away from not having Ryan there really kind of what, probably looking back took me away from my, my career playing.
That's also your father also played baseball too for Murray State. Is that right?
Yep. So we have a long history of baseball. My dad, was Division I pitcher and first baseman at Murray State in Kentucky. And then, my older brother, Mickey, who's about 5 or 6 years, actually 7 years older than Ryan and myself, he played, at Seminole State. So he didn't go all the way to the Division I, but he was a, baseball guy. So, having those two guys, basically the ones that coached Ryan and myself our whole career, and kind of led us to where we are today.
That makes sense with the baseball organization that you've built, and kind of like the long-term events that happen when you learn and grow with your family over time. And it seems like that's continued on, which is amazing. Yeah.
I mean, we were, we've had opportunity, like even this past week, to do some interviews and stuff. And the most recent one was actually really neat. My brother got interviewed, my dad, Mickey, my mom. It was basically talking about the Bono family and what baseball means to us. And the two and two go together. It's family first, Bono, then baseball's right behind it. So, and that's just something that's built into all the kids, the grandkids now. So it's a third generation of baseball players are coming through, baseball and softball now with our, my nieces and my nephews.
That's awesome.
Yeah, actually, speaking of your niece and her, and I need you to tell me her name. Her name's escaping me right now, but she was also in the home run derby.
Addison. Addison.
That's right. That's my niece's name. I should have remembered the name. But yeah, she was also in the home run derby. So you had Landon, you had the cousins of Landon and Addison in the home run derby on the softball and the baseball side at the Little League World Series. So that was pretty cool to watch too.
Yeah, it was special to have, them to her get there. And, that way, like I said, the whole family was kind of up there. I know we'll talk a little bit more about the World Series, but, the whole family was up there. But, Ryan had to stay home because we still run a landscape company together. And he was holding it down with, while I was gone for almost a whole month, which was really, something I thank him for every day now, giving me the opportunity to be away for 25 days straight. But, he took those 3 days. He was able to get up there for those 3 days for the home run derby and actually got to see 2 of our wins, which was really special.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so just a little bit more on UCF as far as your sophomore year, 2004. Okay, so that particular year was an amazing one for the baseball team in general and the baseball program in general. Going to the NCAA regionals and everything, and it was obviously a very special year, but in particularly, it was a very special year for you. You had an 8-2 record that year, a 1.93 ERA, which is a record I believe still stands today. And you also had 5 shutouts on the season, which is another record that I believe still stands today. So just can you talk about that season just as a team, and then your individual performances, just how you felt on the mound, and just just as you went about that special season, because it's just kind of I look back at the year 2004 for me, with obviously we went the basketball team, we set a school record for wins. We, as far as in the Division I era, we had a win streak that was a school record. And we went to the NCAA tournament ourselves. So it was just that year of 2004 was just a really special one. That spring of 2004 in particular was something special. So what do you remember about that 20 years later, and just as we look back on it?
20 years, man. That's the crazy thing.
Alan's a little bit younger than we are, so it is interesting.
It is. No, like I said, talk about Rich Wallace. So Rich came in there, I think 2000, 2001, 2002. Or he came in 2001. So those 3 years leading up to, so I was in, high school. We know the UCF program was top, in those years in 2000, 2001, 2002 before I went to UCF. Then we came in my freshman year. We had we didn't really have a senior core that was still really, doing much to kind of like lead the team, So so that 2003 season was down. Coach Bergman was down on us a lot. There was a lot of things happening just with a younger team because we had I think 13 or 14 freshmen come in, and a lot of them were contributing. So we knew going into 2004, we needed to make a change. Again, on the offensive side, we put up a lot of wins, but going into that season, really, we didn't have any returning starting pitching, really, because we had Matt Fox, who at the time, he became a first rounder. Me and him were the 1-2 battery that year. But Fox, wasn't really a primary pitcher either until that year. He was playing shortstop and in relief. I was coming in and closing. So us jumping in and doing what we did was special in its own. And then you add in a Taylor Cobb, or no, Taylor Cobb was there, but then you added in a couple freshmen, some transfers. And like I said, we not only did I personally have a shutout record, but I think our team threw 13 shutouts that year. Something I don't think that'll ever be beat. I mean, especially with how good baseball and the disparity of baseball now. But back then, we knew we had to get a win on Friday night, and then I'd come in there Saturday and try to get that first win, and we win that series. So it was an incredible journey. But again, a lot of things had to happen. On the pitching side with Coach Cozart, which is I still talk to him all the time. Now he's got 2 baseball players in his family. One just got drafted in the first round. Another one should be a first rounder in 2 years from now, if not a top 5 pick. So a lot of that stuff, coaching back then, really helped us kind of get where we needed to be and put us over.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was definitely a special year. Special year, man. So let's get into it. Let's get into the last 6 months. I mean, obviously, it's just been an incredible year, as we said. Being the first Little League World Series team from Florida to win the whole thing, win the World Championship. So that's really exciting. I mean, I currently live in Apopka, so not too far from you, and they still talk about the 2000 Apopka team that won the U.S. Championship.
Yep.
And so it's a huge deal. I was down there at the parade after you guys won it. Rich and I were standing next to each other when you guys were accepting all the deserved accolades on the stage there, where the whole community was surrounding you guys, and I think it was 35,000 people out there, plus probably more than that.
Yeah, and I don't know the number, but it was incredible.
Yeah, it was just a great day. And I watched the whole journey with my son, who's just turned 11. He plays 11U travel baseball here in Apopka, and so it's just an exciting run for everybody that's involved in the community, let alone the baseball community. So I'll just say congratulations, and then I'll just I'd like you to kind of speak about the journey, because I know that you guys were essentially 1 win away from Williamsport last season, and just kind of starting with this season, trying to regroup and reform the team and see if you can make a serious run at it. I mean, what was the journey like, especially kind of in the beginning leading up to Williamsport?
Yeah, like you said, like you just mentioned, it all started last year. Like I said, all these guys do play, competitive travel baseball. I run a top program in the country for, our age group. So, we've all played, I actually coached probably 10 of the 12 guys, either through travel or doing private lessons with them. Yeah. Before we got here. So so the teamwork, and we knew we had the players and the quality players that it takes. But like you mentioned, last year we were 1 game away. I wasn't on the coaching staff last year just because, we played Little League, at 7 and 8. Then we stepped away and kind of got into the travel stuff. And that's when, Coach Anderson, he's being the league president of Lake Mary Little League, said, hey, let's find a way to get all the local. There's a lot of local talent here, man. Let's see if we can get them all back here. You can do both, which you can, there's a lot of the Little League stuff, during the weeknights, or they kind of moved all the older division games to later on Saturday. So, you could always get your weeknight game in, play on Saturday in the evening, even if you had travel stuff in the morning. Makes the Saturdays long, but the kids just getting extra reps, which helps them in the long term. Playing those extra games. So it started back then when we lost that first game or last game in regionals. We knew we had a 4 core players. Those 4 guys that came back this year: Landon, JJ, Chase, and Jacob. They were guys that contributed. They were basically the 4 top hitters last year on the team, besides Owen Faust. So we knew we had a core 4 guys coming back this year. So this journey, it didn't start this in basically spring baseball in Little League starts, late February. So we had 6 months to kind of understand who were the other pieces going to be. We had a couple kids that lived in the area, they said after seeing what we did last year, there was, 3 guys that came back. Hey, I want to play Little League now. I think I could help the team. And those guys did, contribute quite a bit. But again, it's from there, we still had, 4 or 5 guys that were in the league. So it's an exciting time. And we knew, back in February, a lot of these other leagues and all-stars, they'll put like, 6 or 7 of the guys on the all-star team together and just kind of beat up on the other teams during the regular season. Just to get, let's start practicing now. Let's practice now. We John doesn't allow that. The league doesn't allow that. So you go through the draft. So every team had 2, 3 guys at the most. So we're competing against each other at every regular season game. Our little leagues were, fun games there because you're facing a guy throwing 70 miles an hour. Each team had probably one of them. We had a lot of pitching depth in the league. So it kind of prepared us for when All-Stars, came about. So like once All-Stars started in June, I'll kind of pick it up from there. So Little League was competitive. So we started at that point. And then once All-Stars starts, we put the team together. There's always a couple people that are going to be left down and hurt. That's just the beast of it. Who's the 13th and 14th kid? That's always an issue. It's always been an issue, in baseball and any sport, you met your best friends are guys to play All-Star with, but you're also probably some of the people that don't like you as much because you missed out on the chance. Right. That's the sad part of it, but it happens. So when we started All-Star run in, districts and sectionals, we knew we had a team that, nobody can compete with us. So those first 2 tournaments, we blew everybody out, 10-run rules, 3-inning games. Guys got to play more positions on the field. Yeah. So everybody got a little rotation, but we knew at some point it would kind of start getting into the top 9 guys will be on the field. Guys will have more roles, and we mentally prepared the guys for that by having 2 practices a day. We practice at 10 a.m. I have my own training facility in Lake Mary. So, in the summertime, we knew it might rain in the afternoons. So we practice at 10 a.m. every morning, 5 days a week or 4 or 5 days a week. And then in the afternoons at 5 when it didn't rain. So the guys were prepared. The mental toughness, and I know people saw that in those games. How are these guys doing this? Because we made them run miles, man. I mean, they were doing mile runs after practices from my house down the end of the driveway and back to the road. I mean, they're huffing and puffing because it's 100 degrees out there. Right. But it was a different approach than we did last year. I'm not saying we had probably just as much talent last year, but the mental side, the knowing that what it took in preparation on the off the field. Because these kids are with us in hotels, and then when we get to Williamsport, they're in the Grove. How do we mentally get them ready? How do we make them understand that it's not just this isn't all about fun?
And I think that really showed through. I mean, there was numerous games, including the World Championship game, where you guys had to come back in the late innings, or in the case of the World Championship, the last at bat. The last pitch. Had to come back. And so, I think that type of training, that type of mental toughness that you guys built up over the course of the summer, it obviously paid off because it seemed to just, they never seemed to give up on themselves. They never seemed to, get down too much. They just seemed to kind of remain focused in the face of adversity. And I think that speaks to some of that training.
No, like I said, I think we took a little bit of the Cardiac Knights motto. I mean, I don't want those. I mean, those games are tight. I said the last 2, the USA Championship, we're down in the last inning. The 16th, we're down 3 runs. We come back and win. Right. And in the World Championship, we're down in the last inning. There was other games. Really in the World Series, most games we did have the lead, even in the states and the regionals. But there was games that we were still neck and neck all the way to the last inning. I mean, the most people ask us now, what was the hardest game out of what was the best team? It was actually the team in the state of Florida, Boca Raton, who we played in the semifinals. We beat them 1-0 or 2-1 in 8 innings. Oh, wow. They had a pitcher. You're talking about speed wise. They had a pitcher throwing 82 miles an hour against us. That's 110 miles an hour. So he would have been the hardest thrower at the World Series. He had 15 strikeouts against us. We ended up beating him in the extra innings. Once he got to his pitch count, we put up 5 runs and ended up beating him 6-1. So that was looking at, there's different rankings that come out. They ended up being the number 4 ranked team in the country after the World Series was over. That's how they projected how good that other team was. So, I mean, there was 5 moments throughout this whole journey. The team's good. It takes lucky breaks. It takes a call here or there. But there was 5 plays I can remember off the top of my head, even in 2 in that game alone, that we're down. It's bases loaded, 1 out. They got their number 3 and 4 hitters coming up, and we make a diving catch by an inch to not let him score, and then a pop fly in the infield, 3 pitches in a row, or we lose that game in the bottom of the 6th and state tournament. None of this even happened. So, I mean, there's some magic happening. Our motto was our summer. I'm sure you heard about that. Right. we just somehow it happened. It was meant to be, and the kids felt it.
And so how was that as the tournament went on, especially leading up to the US Championship and the World Championship? Like, how do you keep, obviously we're playing at a high level, kids are used to the high level, they're feeling confident, but how do you keep that kind of those nerves from setting in and those doubts from setting in, especially leading up to such big games with 11 and 12-year-olds,
Yeah, I mean, again, being a baseball guy, being not trying to be on the cocky side of it, but like I said, our team was made 1 through 12. Right. A lot of these teams can get away with 3 or 4 guys. If you have 2 elite pitchers, Hawaii, we go into that game, we knew we should beat Hawaii, and we could have blew them out if we had a couple extra hits here or there, but they had their one pitcher, and it showed. I mean, like, he pitched every game, he dominated, he shut through shutouts. It's just how it played out. He wasn't available that game. And we had plenty of arms. We had 3 guys that didn't even pitch at all at the World Series. That would have been probably 3 or 4 guys. They didn't pitch at all, and they didn't even pitch. Landon pitched 1 inning. Garrett Rohosen pitched 2 innings in the World Series. Those guys pitched. Landon pitched the state semifinal game 6 innings. Garrett pitched the finals 6 innings. Did not pitch at regionals at all, and they both combined pitched like 5 innings in the World Series. So you could tell our pitching depth. We knew we were the best team. We were asking about how we didn't get nervous because we knew from top to bottom we were the best team.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. How about we mentioned Rich, and one of the things that he mentioned to me at the parade was that you guys talked often during the tournament, especially leading up to the games there almost every day. How is he as far as were you bouncing things off him or anything as you're leading up to these big games?
So the biggest thing, and especially now with the recruiting, how this compliance is and stuff. So like I reached out to him, I talked to him quite a bit. I reached out to him. I reached out to Coach Juan Pierre, the guys that I've coached with over the last couple of seasons and different things, and college guys. Coach, I said I just need a different voice. I need something to say. We continue to say the same things. Hey, this is what you need a different voice, even though it was working. Something they might tell me a little wording different, and hey, mention this to them. And that just got him for the next 2 or 3 days. That's our little, don't give up, never quit. Whatever they said to me, I was able to pass those little things on along, as just a way to get a different wording across the team and keep them focused instead of being, this is over and over, repeat. So even Rich alone, he tried to get on there, but some compliance thing, they said he wasn't allowed to actually, screen time the guys. It's crazy, these new rules.
Yeah, I had heard about that as well. It's just wild how we could pay athletes now almost millions of dollars actually to play college athletics, but he can't talk to a group of special youth baseball players on their way to something so big. And so, but hey, that's the great NCAA has never been known for their straightforward rules there.
So like you said, I don't know if you saw us. Landon and myself went to the opening. We made it out to the first UCF home game. So we came straight from Disney. We went there, and even if you look back at any of the footage, they took us and they put us on the jumbotron. They announced us on their Instagram and stuff, but they never mentioned Landon. It was all Coach Bono. Again, the same thing, but. So I find out actually we're getting invited to come back October 12th. The team's gonna get recognized. But how it, after talking to Rich and some of the people at the school, it had to come from the administration, the president's office. So that's why, if it's away from athletics, we're allowed to do it. So that's all in the works. So hopefully the game in Cincinnati will have the whole team out there and have a big celebration. I want to do it better than, we just got back from Florida State. A couple other teams have invited us for different things, but I want to make sure that people understand this is where the crowd's going to go absolutely wild, because they did that night for me and Landon. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like when the whole team is there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's just, that's the thing. It's like, it's not only the affiliation that you have and your family does with UCF, but it's just, that's our team, right? Like it's not just Florida, it's Central Florida, that's definitely, that's going to be a special thing. And I'm glad that the university figured out the best way to do that. So for the Cincinnati game, so we'll definitely look out for that. I think one of the main things, obviously, after it's all over, and you've mentioned a few things, but it has had to been just a whirlwind. Some of the things that I've even heard of, I know that isn't even the half of it. Obviously, the trip to Disney, the homecoming homecoming at the airport, then the homecoming parade, the championship parade, and going up to Tallahassee, you get to meet the governor, like all sorts of different things that you guys have been able to experience over the last month. I guess it's been a little bit over a month. How is Landon adjusted to that? How is Landon dealing with that and some of his teammates? I mean, Landon for sure, but he's not the only big personality on that team, that's for sure. And I think that's the reason why the whole nation, not just Florida, really loved watching this team and was rooting for him with DJ and JJ and like all these guys that are just such huge personalities, not to mention Taraja, Taraj and everybody. So how have they been dealing with just the whirlwind tour? I'm sure they're enjoying the heck out of it.
No, that they did. I mean, like I said, get back to those personalities. I tell people now, I'm like, hey, we were the team people loved. When you were there, you could see the environment. Right. Just because what you said, we get luckily. I mean, because we lost, we got to play boom, 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 4 nights in a row, night games on primetime TV. We did have all different personalities. Coach John has a big personality, right. His antics, So, some people from the corporate side might not have liked how we were received because we were UCF. I had a turtle box in the dugout. We're walking up to the fields from batting practices. I'm blaring music. That's kind of the UCF. Maybe it's the UCF thing. We're the young, cool group, and that's what we try to portray. And the kids all had personalities that somebody like, oh, that's my cousin, that's my brother, that's my son. Right. So it did. We became the team people wanted to see it. And after winning, you could see that from all the support. Getting back to the how it's been. We a Rays game. We got to go. Tomorrow on Wednesday, we're going to the Panthers and Lightning are doing an exhibition at Amway. Then we got to go Universal. It's not stopping. So there's actually too many. I just found out the other day there's a list of things that I haven't even got to look at, and they're like, oh, it's too much. The hard part is getting the group of kids all together now. Like everybody's back to travel. They're doing their own travel stuff. So right. Like this past weekend we had 7. We got 5 guys going this weekend to the Bucks game. So to me, it's hard to get everybody back together, just because the things are trying to move on, but the kids are enjoying it. I mean, we went to I would say that one of the best things we did the Rays the other night. I mean, the boys were we got to go in the locker room, we were on the field before the games, maybe because it's the Rays where, they're almost out. They're not making the playoffs. The season's almost over. Those boys got treated like kings. I mean, those players were excited to see them. And as you could see, and they were giving them cleats, their personal cleats, their personal gloves. Each of them got 4 or 5 pairs of batting gloves.
Wow.
So once when I was leaving that facility and I was talking to the guy that I kind of helped set that up, he was like, man, I've done this for a long time. What those guys did to those kids was something I'd never seen, because a lot of times they'd sign autographs and shoo them out. They're in there playing ping pong with these guys. So, I mean, you could tell, those guys watched it, the coaches watched it. I didn't realize that I was on the field. Chad Mottola is the hitting coach for 9 years, UCF alumni, first rounder. Yeah. Chad Mottola. He comes up to me. I get to talk to him for 15 minutes, before the game. And then even the head coach, Cash. So everybody was so welcoming. It just feels good that so many people from different, even the professionals that were watching, they had stuff to say about it. So we're going to keep it up. At some point it's going to stop. Right now we're enjoying it. It's a lot, but we enjoy it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's well deserved, but you're right. It's been quite the whirlwind, and I just think, like you said, I just think America is really it was easy to root for that team. Some people or whatever can look at some of the the outgoing personalities and think some kind of way, but I think the large majority of sane people, just really enjoy how well the they showed their personalities, they showed their emotions, but they played so hard, and I think that's what they appreciated. And then at the end of the day, I think what nobody could dispute and nobody could root against was just the amount of sportsmanship that was shown as well. And you see that every year throughout the Little League World Series, but to see your team win and they're so excited, in such a kind of crazy fashion in that, with the bunt and the squeeze bunt there to win the championship. But then, right before, like, all they want to do is just celebrate with their friends and their teammates, but they, were putting their arm around, the team they were going against there and really showing that sportsmanship. And I think at the end of the day, kids always remind us what it's all about. And that was great to see as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's not. I mean, like I said, all the kids, like you said, we've talked about it. The kids have played at different high levels. They've lost last year in that same game. The difference, in that tournament, because I'm a super competitive guy. I've always, I coach the kids hard. When I see a coach, I'm not going to speak to him. I'm going to beat you. That's just my mindset. But going there, changed it. Even when you're playing those state tournament regionals, that's still kind of the same way. They're their team, that's the other team. But once you get there, these kids are living together for 2.5 weeks. The international teams, they're different. They don't leave after they lose. They're basically there from the start to finish. So all the teams that got eliminated, they're still there. The boys, might not speak their language, but they're still giving them each other, dabs, and some of them can communicate somewhat or what it is. So they became friends with these kids. So seeing those guys, lose, and we're all competitive. We wanted to win, but at the same time, within 30 seconds, there was no dog pile. It was a quick third base side cheer. I'm running around the field because I'm excited. I look back and our kids are kneeling down. Landon, DJ, Coach John, of course, did too. But it was a quick celebration. Then we were back to, hey man, let's make sure these guys are okay because they're heartbroken.
Yeah. It was just a special moment amongst a lot of special moments throughout that run. So just congratulations again. It's just so exciting. And I really appreciate you coming on, Kyle. Maybe one last thing before you go, maybe if you'd like to talk a little bit about Bono baseball, anything further you want to say about that, and just some of the things you're doing in the Central Florida and the Lake Marion area in particular with some of your baseball facility.
Yeah. So like I said, we've, I started doing lessons, probably since I, started playing in the off season. We'd always do lessons. About 5 or 6 years ago, I decided I have 3 acres of property. So I went ahead and built a complex on my own property, 3,000 square foot indoors. We got cages, mounds. I even have a 60-foot, infield, softball style infield that we were able to, utilize. Ryan and I's goal, we do a landscape business. That's just something we do to, help pay the bills. We still get done every day by noon. So we do baseball lessons. We do baseball teams. Most of it's, volunteer work. We do the private lessons, stuff like that. That comes with a fee, but we love baseball. And so we've, over the last 18 months, I've had, talked to different partnerships, and my goal, hopefully in the next 30 days, is to hopefully start a whole academy. There's been some stuff in the works with the Seminole County. I mean, some of the stuff hasn't gone public yet, but I mean, in the near future, Bono baseball will become a lot bigger in the area to support more kids, even kids that might not be able to fund it. Kids that might be inner cities kind of style. So we're trying to do some special stuff in Central Florida and especially Seminole County. So there's some great news hopefully coming here in the next few weeks.
Well, that's exciting stuff. I can't imagine how it is for Landon with a baseball facility in literally in his backyard, in a field in his backyard. That's pretty neat. So that's awesome. And yeah, we'll be definitely looking out for the future of Bono baseball and everything that you guys got going on. And we're excited to have you, Kyle. And I really appreciate the time.
No, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Like I said, you guys do a great job, and like I said, go Knights for sure.
Charge on.
Yes, sir.
Charge on.
All right, thanks.
All right, that was Kyle. Thank you so much for that awesome insight into, his Little League World Series team. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool memories from when he played UCF baseball, and of course, everything that's been going on for the past 6 months with his team. All right, with that being said, let's start moving into UCF football. So as always, we'll get started with Text Talk. Josh, why don't you get us going here with Text Talk?
So I was at a pool for most of the day, and I expected like 1,000 more texts than I got. I think it was in the pool for like 4 hours, and I had 10 texts. So all of you were not talking. A couple of the fun ones when I actually were paying attention. The Cows are playing like poop emoji in the second half. Going to turn to another game soon, which I didn't realize how bad they were playing until. Yeah, they had like it was pretty bad, which is also pretty good. It's a video game day. James Madison beat UNC 70-50, which is just
that's absurd. Yeah.
It's absurd. So yeah, and it wasn't the only game like that too. And I was talking about
there was a number of games that went like basketball scores basically.
Yeah, like SMU. We were watching SMU TCU a little bit, and like. SMU had 66 points and 360 total yards. I think TCU gave up 17 plus points on turnover. Some I don't know the exact stat. Alan probably does, but it was a large, high scoring day for lots of teams. So we had a bunch on the NFL. We were all watching NFL, it looked like, too. So, but that was
I don't really want to talk about NFL. My Bucks were horrible yesterday.
Hey, listen, I'm a Giants fan. Somehow we won. I don't understand how. It's we just need to get rid of Daniel Jones, but that's the Barkley thing is so. Yeah. Anyway, enough by my horrible football team that amazingly beat Tom Brady a few times. Who's next?
Ben, yeah, why don't you go ahead?
I just since it's relevant and we're going to talk about it a lot over the course of this show is I'm so glad that it was right after Colorado made this spectacular comeback and was able to win that game in overtime. I'm so glad that they won. I'm so glad that they won that. Any more attention on our game when we curb stop them will be so great. But then also I've said this on Twitter as well, that I said it first in the text talk, and I truly believe it. Like, RJ runs for 150 and 2 touchdowns against Colorado, and he's a Heisman front runner going into UF game. I feel like the stage is really set. 3:30 game, middle of the day. We're a big noon kickoff this week. I just think it's the stage is really set. That if RJ is able to put together the game that he had, a game like he has had every single game this season, he could be a Heisman front runner, and that's really exciting about the opportunity this week, because whether they deserve it or not from a football standpoint, Colorado gets a lot of eyeballs on the TV set.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think they're the reason we're on Big Noon Kickoff, not us. And obviously we help, but let's be honest. I think they could be, probably not like 1-3 and beyond it, but they get attention whether they have 2 wins or they have 10 wins. And the fact that they've won 3 of their first 4 is only going to amplify their attention around the country. But for mine, I had 2. One was, Ben, you said Travis Hunter versus Kobe Hudson is going must-see TV. That's going to be really cool because, Travis Hunter is not only one of the best wide receivers, but I guess he's kind of one of the best DBs in the country too, going up against arguably a top, 25 wide receiver in the country, top 20 wide receiver in Kobe. And I would venture to say that I don't think Travis Hunter has played against the caliber of Kobe Hudson this year so far, just being who their opponents have been so far. I don't think anyone on Baylor or Nebraska, for that matter, is as good as Kobe Hudson. So that'll be really interesting to see. And then the other one was, I'm glad you have Dominic. I hope they hang on to Napier until we're done with them, because I just love our fan base's pettiness. We just all want to get Napier fired. We want us to be.
Yes. We want to be the nail in the coffin, right?
Yeah, and it. I don't know. I don't know if they're 2-2, maybe. I don't think they have another game before us, right? They think they have a bye now. So
they have a bye, yeah.
I don't know if 2-3 will do it, but it might. Depends on the type of victory.
Yeah. If we win by 20, 30, theoretically,
at night in the swamp, he's gone.
There's 0% chance they're going to,
because that'll be their third home loss or second home loss at least already.
And they're not supposed to lose to us. Even with the temporary head coach or whatnot in the Gasparilla Bowl, you still lost, right? It's Emory Jones and all that, but it's still lost. So in a game that actually counts, quote unquote, the people who have been at UF for a long time are going to remember, was it 2006? I believe that's what it was. I remember going there in 2006. It was not a fun time. We got curb stomped as hindsight, we should have. It was insane. Yeah. I still think we were the first people to ever pick off Tim Tebow, but that's a whole nother story. But this is in the mindset of a lot of UF fans, and we'll get into this probably more next week. But the mentality is that this is UCF. We don't need to worry about them. And they're worried. I mean, they threw
I'm
us on
glad
SEC
I'm
Network.
glad that they won. I'm glad they won that game, no doubt,
Yeah.
man. I was happy to see
And they
them win
looked,
that game. It's the only
decent
time.
in that game
Yeah.
too. So I mean, it was Mississippi State, but
Well, I think Mississippi State is having some growing pains too. So I don't know if they're going to win too much either.
Well, I should probably save this for next week, but I got to say this. So it's funny. I'm sure there's probably plenty of UF fans that are, like you said, Josh, scared, but I think they're preemptively knowing they could lose. So that they're doing. So it's funny. I have a kind of unique situation, or maybe it's not that unique for Florida, but everyone I went to high school, all my best friends from high school, we literally, not a single person went to Florida State. Everyone went to Florida or UCF. So we have like my groomsmen, I had 8, 4 went to Florida, 4 went to UCF. And, we started college, UCF and UF in 2007 for the most part. Back then, obviously UCF was irrelevant in the college football scene, and UF, that was their heyday right there. They had just won a championship the year before, and then they were going on to win another one while all my friends were in school, and we obviously never played them. So all the UCF fans are really hyped right now in my friend group. And, but they're already kind of poo-pooing it, being like, oh, well, we already are expecting to lose. We're expecting to, have maybe 3 wins top this year. So they're already kind of preemptively sitting there saying, well, this loss doesn't really matter. Like, I'm going to mercilessly make fun of you for the next few months. Like, well, it doesn't matter because we're not good. So I think we may get that excuse. Like, it used to be like, oh, it was just a bowl game. It didn't matter. Now it's going to be like, well, we're really bad this year, so the win doesn't matter,
Yeah. We got to leave UF stuff for next week because there's so much more there.
There's a lot. There's a big matchup coming up this week.
Yeah, let's go and talk about that. So we have our week 5 preview. UCF is coming off a bye week, hopefully a week where they got healthy for any nagging injuries. And now they, really face, I would say, this is their first Big 12 home game of the year. And it comes at a time where it's, I think to this point, the biggest game of the season, just with the hype around it. And then, of course, we got the news earlier this week that Fox's version of Game Day, Big Noon Kickoff, will be in Orlando featuring the UCF Colorado game. So it's a 3:30 game, like you guys said. A lot of hype around this one, a real big game. Obviously, Colorado's coming off a win. I mean, we're not facing a 1-3 Colorado squad. We're facing a 3-1 squad here that, that don't necessarily look great doing it, but they are 3-1 against a 3-0 UCF team. So it's a really big game in the national spotlight, a game that we have to have, especially before we travel to Gainesville for UF. Don't want to look ahead. But UCF does open up as an 11.5 point favorite. So that tells you what you need to know, what the odd makers think about this game. The line has already moved to 14.5 in the hours days since the line has come out. So 2 touchdown favorite as of now. But let's get into this game. Why don't we kind of preview it, guys? Just maybe get your initial thoughts on this big matchup that's going to be on Big Noon Kickoff.
Go ahead, Josh.
Well, so it's not at noon; it's at 3:30. So,
we're Fox's version of Game Day, right? Like we get to show out.
They are coming. They are set. Yes,
yeah.
You don't understand how many people that confused. Confused.
It's just a bad name.
It's a bad name. It's a bad name unless you're always going to put that show at the noon game because I
thought originally that was the point of Big Noon Kickoff. It was always the noon game. Like they always moved the game to noon, and then they had Big Noon Kickoff.
Who knows? Here's what I do know. What I do know is I think we're the first site in Florida that has it, and honestly, someone should do the statistics or the analysis.
How long have they been doing it? How new is? I actually didn't realize Big Noon Kickoff was a game day thing until 2 days ago. I knew the name, I just didn't know it was a thing though.
It was, I think, 2 years. Bear is on there, Chris Fasella or whatever.
Yeah, he got fired from.
Oh, really?
Well, did he get fired?
He's part of the layoff, the mass layoffs that they had.
Yeah. So there's some good people in there too. So I'll talk a little bit about that and a little bit about the game. the big noon kickoff, I'm really interested because I vividly remember game day. And when game day came on campus, my daughter was like 6 months old or something. I got pictures of her like on the replica desk that they had in Memory Mall, and it was insane. And if there's any game anytime soon that's going to have not a noise penalty, that's, Troy's not a state, but if there's any game that we're going to have them go offside, I don't think I'm sure they're ready. I don't think they understand how loud that stadium can get when people are amped.
I don't think they'll get. I don't think they'll understand it till the first snap.
Yeah, and it's still 3:30. It's still going to be hot. Shadur and Travis and all them played in Jacksonville State. Forgot.
Jackson State, yeah.
Yeah. It's hot down there too, right? They're used to the heat. I know some people think that this is the Florida weather's going to get. No, they're not. So anyway,
and a lot of those recruits are from Florida on that team.
Oh,
yeah.
True B. I don't even know if we're going to talk about the 4,000 recruits we're going to have there too. So for the big noon kickoff, here's the deal. I really hope it's going to be relatively similar in prep, like this Thursday or Friday. There's things, and we get some of. It's not quite probably the game day level hype, but I hope we get some of those things on campus so the students and the fans can remember it, because it game day was memorable, and for the same reason I couldn't take my daughter to game day. She was 6. I think it was a little much. And we had to just take care of her. I didn't get to go to that one. This one, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. It depends on where they have it. Maybe Memory Mall will learn that soon. So I feel like that's A, great. B, we're probably one of the few places in the country have had both game day and big noon, or at least definitely the only one in Florida. And so I think it's going to be good for everyone. And I think it's going to be like 99.9% about Deion Sanders. I feel like we'll get a little blip here and there, unlike game day, which was pretty heavy on the UCF stuff. But we all know why people are coming down here. If we're 1-2 or 2-1, I don't know. But undefeated us, and after that game, it's ratings. It's a ratings juggernaut. So I think that's great. When it comes to the game, man, the game's going to be interesting, generally, in my opinion. It's been a while for the fan base to have a game of this level of significance in a middle of the day type of game. And I hope our fans are going to be up to it. I know the team will be fine. I feel like it might be a little tighter than even the odds makers say. I hope not, but I feel like it will be. I want to make sure the fans are going to be hydrated and they're going to take care of themselves. Because when's the last time you can remember needing to get really up for a game as a fan and be loud and stomping and all that in the middle of the day, like not a night game? It's been a little
game day game. That was a 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
kick.
7.
It was
yeah,
a night game. It
nice
was
and nice.
Maybe at 8:30 or something.
It was nice and dark outside, and oh god, I still think that the Mike Hughes run back was possibly louder, but those two are darn near close. If
the
not
3 straight false starts, I'll never forget how loud
I think that was the loudest I ever heard the stadium.
The second one, I think, was the second one was
huge.
Yeah. So anyway, for this game, so for the fan base, hey fan base, you got to tailgate, hydrate. Make sure you have food, right? I mean, and I'm being kind of funny and serious at the same time, because we need to be that 12th man. That crowd is going to cause something to happen in this game, and I feel like the teams are already going to be prepared. It's going to be interesting to see if Hunter gets doubled and still gets like 150 yards. Kobe on the other end might be the same way. I feel like this is going to be a closer game than we think. It's going to be closer than the game than we think in the fourth quarter. And I hope, like we've been doing for so many games, we run so much that their defense is just shot. And the defense is all right at times, really good at times. So that's going to be interesting too. it's going to be a great game. It's a reason why tickets are like flying off the resale. At like, I have a friend of mine who got $850 for one ticket in the Cabana or something like that. It's yes, and I'm not selling my tickets this game. Oh, that's the last thing. Remember, folks, I sold my tickets to that Kansas game, and sometimes I wish I had the $600 back. Do your part, do what you need to do, but I feel like this is a game you're going to want to be at.
Yeah.
So maybe you sell one and then you go and have your butt in the seat for the other one. But it's I haven't seen anything like this in a while. Like that Cincinnati game, I sold my extra for like $350, and that's nowhere near where this game is in some areas. So
yeah, I remember that Cincinnati game. I sold we had our family 4-pack at that time, and I sold my extra 2, which I probably paid $20 a ticket for, or $10 a ticket for. I sold those for a decent amount, and that couple sat next to my wife and I, and we had a great time. I'll never forget that the 3 false starts. I wasn't there for the Mike Hughes. I was still living in Memphis at the time, so that's my biggest moment. And besides maybe. Well, that's my biggest moment in UCF fandom, football fandom history in the bounce house. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
But that was incredible. But I think that it's right to reference back to that game in particular and the game day game, because UCF fans at that time, and I think UCF fans on Saturday, when there's a big event, when it's kind of the game is an event. I think that UCF fans truly do show up and show out. They show that they have the ability on Saturday to show the nation just kind of what we're about as a fan base. And just like game day, I believe it was a record-breaking game day at that time as far as attendance and the amount of fans that were there. I don't know if that record still stands, but I remember it being a record breaker. But then this big noon kickoff, which as Alan said, which most UCF, reflects what most UCF fans probably just found out that it was that what it was, which is
I thought it was the name of the program and not like a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that as they've found that out over the last couple of days, like it's not going to change the amount of fans that are going to show up and create a real atmosphere for that big noon kickoff show. And then when it comes to, I agree with you, Josh, like when it comes to the game itself, I think being at 3:30, I hope that the bounce house is just rocking come kickoff, and we really show the Colorado team who has been in some tough environments before, certainly, but this season's UCF team isn't the Baylor team that they just came back on. The environment that they have been in the past isn't the bounce house, and how special that place can be when all the fans are into it and rocking it. I think even I even saw on the UCF Facebook group today, just people talking about, a lot of Colorado fans bought tickets to these games, because we're all cashing in, and that's going to mess up. Like first off, are there really Colorado fans right at the moment? Are they actual Colorado fans? And then also like fans of UCF, even casual fans of UCF that live in the Central Florida area, live in the Orlando area, and they've got the money to spend. They're spending the money to buy these tickets to be at the event, to be part of this spectacle, if you will. And when UCF starts rocking, they're going to be cheering right along with us. They might be going there to see Coach Prime on the sideline, which is just a weird thing to think about, that you're going there to see a coach who's just standing on the sideline. But obviously they've got some special players as well on that Colorado team. But that the spectacle is going to be something special. And then just as you saw at that Kansas game, Josh, once UCF starts to turn the tide, our fans get louder than most fan bases. Yeah. And I think that that's what's going to happen on Saturday. And then lastly, what I'll say about the game, we've already talked about it. We already touched on it. I talked about it in the text talk. It's, Kobe versus Travis Hunter is going to be interesting. And one other reason why I feel like that is interesting is, and I think Pro Football Focus put this out earlier this week, is that Kobe Hudson's like the number one wide receiver in one-on-one coverage in the country. And when you've got the backfield of KJ Jefferson, RJ Harvey in particular, and the amount of running ability that we have, number one rushing team in the nation, you're going to have to play our best receiver one-on-one. And so Kobe Hudson versus Travis Hunter is going to be a prime time matchup. I mean, it is going to be a heavyweight boxing matchup to see those two guys go at it on one side of the ball. And then to figure out how our secondary, how our defense is able to contain a weapon like that. And I think the number one question mark for our defense is not necessarily how you can contain Travis Hunter because he's a special talent. I think it's, can we get pressure on Shedeur Sanders? I think that's the number one question. We have really talked positively, rightfully so, about our defensive line and some of the depth that we have. Some of the athletes that we have on that defensive line, but we have not seen the defensive line in particular get the amount of pressure that we need to get on the quarterback to make him make quick decisions, make him make mistakes, and so our linebackers and secondary can take advantage of that. That's what we're going to need to see in this game, because they do not have a running game, or at least Colorado has not displayed that they have any type of running game outside of Shedeur Sanders scrambling. Which is something that we're going to need to look out for. But can our defense get to him quickly, make him uncomfortable, and then be able to cover some of the really good receivers that this team has? I think that's the biggest kind of question mark going into this game.
Yeah, that's a lot of good points there. And, just from my side, I think you made a good point, Josh. When have we had a game, in conference game that's really meant as much as this? I mean, you look back, obviously, I guess last week would be the closest one, but that was, that was away though, obviously. And it was the first one, but, being that, obviously until we lose multiple times, you're playing for the playoff at this point. I mean, as whether it's unrealistic or not, I mean, until we lose, we're technically playing for that one guaranteed spot if we obviously win the conference championship. So every conference game is super important. But, I think back, honestly, I know you said the last time there was like a day game. I kind of actually go back to last year's Baylor game. I just looked.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah, it was the first. Yeah. It was our first ever Big 12 home game in the history of our program, and it was actually at 3:30. And I remember it being I was at that game, and it was extremely packed and loud. Same. And obviously, Baylor doesn't have the type of hype that Colorado does currently, but it was very loud in a very boisterous environment. So,
for a while.
Yes, until the epic collapse happened, but we won't go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this game, I think this is big for obviously a lot of different reasons. The fact that Big Noon Saturday is coming is really cool. I think you made a good point that we could be one of the few programs that have been featured on both ESPN and Fox's, segment there, which is really, really cool. Just some stuff about Colorado. They're coming off a 38-31 overtime victory where they needed basically a Hail Mary to bail themselves out and get into the position to be to win the game. Just some key stats. Shedeur Sanders is second in the Big 12 in passing yards. Travis Hunter is second in the Big 12 in receiving yards. I mean, that's their main duo there. They really they also have Jimmy Horn too, but in general, those are kind of their main two weapons. I don't think they're as deep as us, and from just a total weapon standpoint. They may have the two best players on the field, or arguably the two best players on the field, but after that, it starts to tail off for them. They are second in the Big 12 in passing yards, but they are dead last in rushing yards. They only average 69 rushing yards per game. I don't know if that's just by the fact that they do a lot more passing than running, or they just don't have a really solid running back like we do. But that is something to note. So kind of polar opposites in that respect, UCF and Colorado. Then they are 11th in rushing defense. They're allowing 151 yards per game. So obviously we have a huge opportunity with RJ. I mean, RJ is averaging, close to 150 yards on every team he plays. So a team like Colorado that's, on the bottom end of rushing defense, I'm sure we can exploit that. Then they are, surprisingly enough, I felt like they've scored more, but Colorado is 12th. Second to last in points scored. They're only scoring 26 points a game, and they weren't playing top tier competition. I mean, other than Nebraska, who was briefly ranked, they played Colorado State, North Dakota State, and Baylor. So they're not really scoring despite having kind of two explosive weapons. And then they are 12th in points allowed. So I don't really know what they do well. They're kind of in the middle of the pack towards the bottom in most key stats. I think they have had some narrow wins this season that they've been able to eke out there. Other than that, I know, Ben, you had mentioned a stat about Kobe. Also, Kobe is number 5 in the country in catches that are 15 yards or more. So he's really kind of leading that explosive category, explosive plays category. So, I think we've talked about this game a lot now. I think we know what our strengths are. We know what their strengths are. I think if we can get an early lead on them and just kind of keep running the ball down their throat, we should have a really good chance to win this game. It would just be how I think something I'd like to talk about, and you guys can chime in here is, I mean, first of all, who guards Travis Hunter? I mean, we've seen to this point that Brandon Adams has been the guy that takes on their team's best receiver. And until last week, it looked pretty good. Even dating back historically, I think Brandon Adams has some sort of stat. I think he's only given up like 1 touchdown his whole career when targeted at him. So he's been lights out in that department. But who do you got? Who would you put on Travis Hunter? Or is it 2 guys? You rotate? What do you do there?
Yeah, I think you have to get it done by committee. When you've got somebody that, that athletic, that special of a football player, and he's shown he's kind of like what RJ Harvey has done on the ground so far this season. Travis Hunter has definitely displayed that with his receiving ability, and so you've got to be able to make sure that there is always a safety, in the area, always another defender in his area, in addition to the main person guarding him. I mean, it's got to be. That would be a good text talk that Josh said over the weekend was what's the football version of a box and one defense? Because we might need that for Travis Hunter. Yeah, you have to have a lot of attention. And I think one of the reasons why they are second to last in scoring and they haven't been very impressive from a stats standpoint is because they're a one-dimensional team, or at least they have shown to be a one-dimensional team at this point. They have a huge weapon in Travis Hunter, somebody that we're always going to have to keep an eye on, and obviously their quarterback Shedeur is a really talented quarterback, both with his arm ability and his ability to run the ball. But still, those are 2 talented players, but they have not displayed that they have the ability to run the ball consistently. And I think that's the reason why we should be able to have the ability to, pay more attention to their biggest weapon in Travis Hunter.
Yeah, so Travis Hunter is 6'1", BA is 6'3". I mean, to me, can we put Tennyson, Adams, and either one of Arnold or Bullard on him? So he's going to get his. That to me, can we throw both Hendersons? Can the Hendersons kind of just no? Here's the reality. He's going to get his. He unless something very weird happens, he will be in the top 3 for Heisman at the end of the season. He and deservedly so. He is probably a top 5 draft pick. I don't see him dropping out of that, or maybe even the number 1. Like, he is that level of.
He's athlete. Number 1 on Mel Kiper's big board right now.
I mean,
has been all year.
It should be. It doesn't unless you have someone at that number 1 spot who really, 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 really needs a quarterback and is looking Cam Ward or whatever. You're probably right. So this is what we're up against. And to me, other than the nth level of game planning for him, because it's something you have to do. Someone could get paid this week. I mean, if Adams defends him and he gets relatively shut down, just, I'm not talking Reeves Island, but relatively.
Yes, 60 yards. If he holds him to 60 yards or less, that'd be an unbelievable feat.
Yeah, and so that's, I feel like you just scheme as best as you can and hope for the best and be comfortable with it. He has to beat us alone, not Shadur's feet, not Horn, him alone. And I think it's going to be a combination of, so I feel it's probably going to be Adams and a combination of people. I feel like us running and effectively running is going to keep him off the field too. So you have a mix of that, but he's just going to get his, and he should. He's the best player in college football.
Well, it won't keep him off the field, but it'll just keep him on the defensive end of the field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm talking about scoring.
I know, I'm just kidding around.
But it's just, it's so phenomenal, like the level that he's playing at. He's the one that popped the ball out to make it a touchback on that last play when they were driving.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It really is. And we have to realize that outside of that confluence of things, basically Colorado has beaten the new Pac-12 with Colorado State and maybe North Dakota State. Who knows who's going to be in that conference by the time you listen to this, dear viewer or listener. So it's just, we have to just make sure we make them as relatively one-dimensional and off the field in offense as possible. And we do have the team that can do that with all of our rushing threats from quarterback on out.
Yeah, I agree. And, a couple more points here before we may move on to our score predictions. But I was actually shocked to see this. I just assumed that Shedeur Sanders was a dual threat quarterback. And I look, he has 89 career rushing yards in 4 years. And that includes at Jackson State.
Wow.
89. And this year he has a total of 10. He's averaging 0.3 yards per carry. So he is not a dual threat quarterback by any stretch.
Did I apologize to what I said earlier? I guess I'm thinking of the one scramble run that he made in that Baylor game, and I guess I just hadn't paid attention. That's
I am shocked by that stat, and the reason I bring it up is we talked about last week and really this whole season. UCF has had one sack all season. They have not been able to really apply that pass rush, and we've talked about it. I think it's been a big problem. So, and when I looked at, obviously in the 3 wins that Colorado has, Sanders was barely sacked, but against Nebraska, he was sacked 6 times in that game, which I would say was obviously a big reason why they, lost or a part of it. So do you think, UCF secondary or just in general, we can get some pass rush going this week? I mean, who's it going to be? We have 1 sack all season long, which I believe is Deshaun Pace. But other than that, and I know Roger has said, and it's been talked about that our opponents have been getting the ball out super quick. But I mean, I think with a guy that is not a dual threat by any means, do you think we can get some pass rush this week?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, if their running game is not that great, let's be
it's
clear.
awful.
Right,
last in the conference.
Yeah, Shedeur can scramble. I mean, he's talented too. I don't know where he'll go in the draft, but he probably will be. He will be drafted. I'm sure of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
easily. So I'm hoping it feels like this could be more of the traditional games we are used to, because when we even all the way back to New Hampshire, I mean, when I'm like, where is this defensive line? I'd look at the quarterback, I'd look at the lines, and I'd just count in my head 1, 2, 3, and by the time I'd say 4, ball's out. Or somewhere else. Like, if you go back to any game this season, Sam Houston or TCU, for the most part, it is. And TCU had a little bit more than that. Their offensive line did hold our team from getting a ton of pressure. There's a lot. I wouldn't say a ton. Like there was hurries and things like that, but John HOF'er was a man on a mission who failed. So unfortunately failed again. That's kind of how these things have been. I feel like the answer is going to be yes. If I had to if you gave me a plus minus on 2 sacks, I want to go plus, but I think it's going to be around 2. And I feel like this is the game where it's possible, and it's not because anything is different between the line play between the two teams. I feel like Shedeur is going to try to hold it to the last moment, knowing that if Travis is a fraction open or Horn is somewhat open, like he can hold out long enough with the ball in his hand to get to the receivers who can make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
I think you asked who is it going to be? I mean, could it be, Kelly finally, breaking through and making sure that, I mean, he's had some solid games so far this season. He's been disruptive, but can he break through for the sack? I mean, we've talked about it all season. We've got the talent to certainly put pressure on the quarterback, but who's going to be that guy that breaks through and, gets that sack? Could it be, some sort of scheming thing where we actually, bring some more, rush linebackers off the blitz? Who knows? But I don't think we've seen much of that this season. That's not really my category to really comment on that type of stuff. But I'm hoping that, at the end of the day, we just need to make sure we get pressure on the quarterback. If they're going to, try to play the TCU game, I don't think that's Colorado's like main, the quick pass game that TCU did against us, these guys in the slot and all that stuff. I mean, you guys probably have watched a little more Colorado than I have, but it just doesn't seem like that's the type of, game that they play offensively. That I don't think it's. I think we would be taking them out of their comfort zone if Shedeur is getting the ball out in 2 seconds because he's just doing a quick slant pass or whatever it may be. So it'll be interesting to see the type of pressure that we can get on the quarterback in this game, and to see if guys like Nigella Kelly and some others that are able to step up, are able to show us some of the promise that they have, and get to the quarterback and actually bring him down for a loss, accumulate those sacks. I agree with you, Josh. I think 2's probably I think I'd be excited to see 2 sacks in this game. If we got more than that, I think we dominate them.
Yeah. And it would be really good to really see, starting to see that, like you said, from Kelly and some of these guys, maybe Dotson, or even just Malachi Lawrence.
Lawrence is another name. Yeah.
He had a big breakout year last year, and to this year he's been quiet. I mean, he hasn't really messed up or made any mistakes, but he hasn't really put up the numbers that he was having last year. I mean, last year he had 10.5 tackles for a loss and 7.5 sacks, and I don't think he has any of either so far. So it would be nice to see some pass rush. I have not seen UCF struggle this much with the pass rush in any year that I can remember. I mean, even last year in the Big 12, I mean, at least I remember against the FCS and whoever he played in Group of 5 last year, Kent State, we had multiple tackles for a loss and sacks. So it is interesting. The final thing I kind of wanted to go over before we get into the score predictions, I just thought this was an interesting point to bring up. We saw in the first 2 games, obviously FCS and Group of 5, a lot of rotation at running back. Obviously, RJ Harvey still had, I would say a good portion of the carries, but last week it really took a noticeable gap. RJ last week ended up with 29 carries, and the second closest to him was Penny Boone with 7. So we're talking about he had more than 4 times the number of carries. Is that something you think we're going to see going forward? And not that I have a problem with it. I think RJ is obviously should probably have the lion's share, but we talked about preseason all year how we have this four-headed monster running back room, and now just the disparity, and maybe it was just out of need because it was such a close game last week, go to your workhorse. But do you think that's what it's going to be going forward, where RJ and the other ones are kind of almost just phased out outside of maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 carries.
I think you'll see the intentionality of using all 4 of our backs in the first half of games going forward. And I think Gus is probably going to utilize more of a two-headed monster kind of towards the second half, maybe spell RJ a little bit. But if these games are close in the second half, I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw at TCU is listen, when the plays really matter, when we need to move the ball, our best players are going to be in the game. And that means that Kobe Hudson is definitely going to be in the game. That means Randy Pittman is definitely going to be in the game. But it 100% means that RJ Harvey is going to be in the game. I think another reason why, potentially another reason why he got the 29 carries last week, apart from it being a very close game, is Miles Montgomery got a little banged up in the middle of that game. I think that's why you saw Penny Boone, get the carries that he got. But I said it on last week's pod, and I certainly agree, or I certainly believe it. Those are Penny Boone made some really big runs in the third and fourth quarter of that game when he did get his opportunity. So I think maybe he's bought a little bit more playing time moving forward as well, and a little more carries. But if Miles Montgomery is healthy, I think he's proven, at least to us as a fan base from outside looking in, he's proven to be a very capable running back to spell RJ Harvey for a few downs here and there, or even an entire drive if need be. And so I think what we're going to see moving forward is going to be RJ Harvey as our lead back, as he should be. But I think it'll be a little closer with Miles Montgomery being kind of the lead number 2. It's just what we've seen so far this season.
Yeah. Josh, you have anything on that? Or?
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I think
true. I mean, yes, everything you said was accurate.
I think Montgomery has shown that not only is he probably our running back 2 towards the end of this year, but I think he's going to be the favorite to be the lead back next year. So I'd be really shocked if he wasn't mixed in more. It's not going to be a 50-50 split by any means, but he should get at least you'd think double-digit carries if he is indeed fully healthy. All right,
yeah, I think Johnny Richardson's probably the odd man out.
Yeah,
it seems like so far, and it's maybe they get him a little bit more involved in the pass game, but he seems to be the odd man out because that role that we maybe assume he could play has been kind of taken up by Xavier Townsend, or even RJ Harvey for that matter, considering he's such a good pass catcher as well, which I think is one of the things that's going to make him a good pro also. But
yeah.
And I will say though, Johnny had, I think it was 2 opportunities in the TCU game or the Sam Houston game. I think it was the same TCU game, and one of them was needed, like a needed third down. So he's still someone we can rely on if we needed to do his job.
I think Gus and the coaching staff really like Johnny Richardson a lot.
They do.
So I think I think he's going to get some opportunities. I just think I'd be surprised if it was more than 6 touches in a game. I think 6 touches would be like a game or a season high this year for him in a game moving forward.
I still think they should use him in the slot. Like if Townsend's only role to this point is essentially like whoever said it on that one show is so true, is just jet sweeps. Yeah. Like why don't they just put John? If Townsend isn't that guy, or he's just going to be kind of a middle of the road guy, we know what Johnny can do in space. He's been doing it for 4 years, so why not put him in the slot role? I know he's probably smaller than Townsend and whatever, but I mean, they're barely using Townsend anyway, so you might as well just put Johnny out there and see what he can do in space.
Yeah, so, I agree.
But that's for another conversation. Anyways, all right, let's get with our score predictions. Obviously, we're going to just have 3 score predictions. We'll just give Trey and Roger and Noah saying that UCF wins 99-0. So that way there's no way they can win. And it would just be us 3. So go ahead, guys.
I'll go first this week only because I'm always accused of stealing. Well,
Yeah,
I'm only accused by Roger of doing
Yeah.
that. So he's not on the show this week. So like you said, he has a 70-point loss for UCF. It's really unfortunate. But anyways, I said it on the text talk. I've said it on social media. I do feel like this has a potential, at least in the first half, to be a bit of a back and forth shootout. To maybe what appears to be well, I mean, your stats kind of go against what I just said there, Alan, as far as just the amount of scoring that Colorado is capable of putting up. But I see this as maybe in the first half it's a little bit back and forth, and then we start to pull away in the third quarter, and I think we actually put up some decent amount of points on them for a conference opponent. And so I'm going to say this may not. I guess this is either just even with, depending on which spread you bet on, but it might be just even with it or just below it at this point. But 42-28 is my score prediction for the UCF first Colorado game. And of course, the 42 is the good guys.
Yeah. Josh?
So I just put it in our side chat and I had it up there. I was waiting for Ben to say something and I was going to okay. And then I did it. My first instinct was that Colorado can't get above 31 points. They haven't yet. And
we got 38 last week.
Well, I don't count. That's overtime. I don't count that.
All right, fine.
There's no overtime in this game. There you go. No overtime in this game. And I'm like, yeah, maybe our defense can pick it up a little bit. And we can score some points. We absolutely can. And thinking that between the spread, my initial instinct was 41-31, and I'm like, I feel like it'll. Even though I said I think the game is going to be closer earlier in this podcast. My gut is going the other way right now, and I have 41-28. I'm not trying to Bob Barker you, but that's I had
one point below me there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's see if the 31 is really worthwhile next time. And I'm sure it's going to be 40-28 with Alan.
So, yeah, I just have a gut feeling here. And I 100% think we're going to win this game. No blinders on. I don't know. I know we're a better offense this year, but we only scored over we only scored over 30 points 3 times last year in conference play and only 1 time over 35, which was obviously that Oklahoma State game. And I know we're a better offense, but something is just giving me the vibe. I don't know. It feels like I remember last week, I think my TCU prediction was actually 36. So I was really close. And I just feel like this is like another 35, but I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised on where we hold them. I'm going to go 35-24 UCF. I don't, for some reason you would think this could be a high scoring game. I'm just not getting that vibe. So I'm going to go 35-24. Good guys.
Yeah. I don't blame you, Alan, because it's like, we've talked about it really all show without actually saying the question out loud, but it's like, is Colorado good? Like, are they? Are they a good team? Like they're like a weird team to evaluate. Like they're just they do some things well, and like even the whole Shedeur Sanders like rushing stat that you talked about. It's like that's surprising about them because it's just they don't appear to be not very good in that category, and it's just wild to see like. I guess it's a very just unpredictable game coming up. And that being said, it seems to be from an expert standpoint when it comes to the, ESPN analytics and the betting, at the moment, it seems like we're a heavy favorite to put it on them. And I hope that's the case. But again, it's like, is Colorado good? Like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out Saturday.
It's interesting because I was looking at it. It's like they haven't really dominated any game that even the ones they won. Like I'm looking at this North Dakota game, for example, their opener. They had a double-digit lead at one point all game, which was 7:57 left to go in the fourth quarter. And then obviously North Dakota scored late and it wasn't a double-digit. Then Nebraska, they were down the entire game. It wasn't even close. I mean, they were they didn't even score their
Yeah.
first points in that game until the third quarter, and it was a field goal. So they were down 28-0 at half. Then against Colorado State, once again, I mean, their lead at halftime was 14-3. I mean, that was still a game. So that they didn't really dominate that one. And in this Baylor game, they needed to come back at the very end on a prayer just to get to the point where they could have overtime. So to me, and they were down at halftime in that game. So I know they've obviously, the win is what matters, but I don't know. I think they're one of those teams that's going to, kind of like last year. Didn't they start kind of hot? I think they started out 2-0 or 3-1 last year, and then they collapsed. It feels like that could be, I don't see their team being drastically better or improved from last year. It's pretty much the same squad. And a lot of, I don't follow them super closely, but a lot of people have talked about how their offensive line, which was already bad last year, got even worse this year.
Right.
So that's why I'm going with my score.
Yeah, I hear you.
Awesome. All right, cool. So I guess we don't have Trey yells at a cloud, but we will. We could now do the Big 12 score recap. So it was a pretty interesting week in the Big 12. Pretty much launched most of the in-conference games. There was a couple out of conference games, but we had Cincy beat Houston 34-0. So early favorite is Houston. Looks like they are by far the worst team in the conference, which most people kind of had them as at least one of the worst. But Cincinnati, surprisingly, off to a 3-1 start, so they're not looking too bad. West Virginia beat Kansas 32-28, so Kansas just keeps falling farther and farther into the abyss as the season goes on. Iowa State beat Arkansas State 52-7, dominant win there for the ranked Cyclones. Texas Tech beat Arizona State 30-22. So Arizona State was handed their first loss of the season. Utah beat Oklahoma State 22-19 to stay undefeated. So most people had Utah as, one of the two favorites. And now it's kind of looking like at least Utah 4 games in is the clear favorite in the conference. Then SMU, unfortunately, I guess for us, whipped TCU 66-42. So we can either take credit for ending TCU's program or we'll just say they suck. One of the two. Hopefully it's the first one.
Yeah.
Then obviously Colorado beat Baylor. BYU, the surprise story of the weekend, they decimated Kansas State, ranked Kansas State, might add, top 15 Kansas State, 38-9. And BYU is now 4-0 and now ranked in the top 25. So I don't think most people had BYU towards the bottom of the conference, at least in most preseason polls. So to see them 4-0 and knock off Kansas State by what 20 something points there was a shocker. So that
they dominated them 38-9. They dominated
them. And that is no longer, I don't think we could circle that as an easy game. Unfortunately, it is at home, but that is not going to be one of our easier games, even though it started out like it looked like it was going to be that way. But that was a couple teams obviously had buys in the Big 12, including UCF, of course. And now Big 12 is back up to 5 ranked teams, with BYU entering the top 25 at number 22. Utah moved up a spot to number 10. Iowa State is 18. Oklahoma State dropped to 20. Kansas State, despite the loss, stayed in the top 25 and dropped to number 23, which means we have 4 undefeated teams left in the Big 12. Of course, our Knights, BYU, Utah, and Iowa State. And guess what? We play all 3 of those teams this year. So
Iowa State's the only one on the road, though. So that's interesting.
That is true.
Of those teams. And then I'll just looking at Iowa State, it's like that's another team that we all said before the season started that it was like that's a team that we're probably, that game, just because it's on the road, is one of the scarier games. We also, I know you and I said that, Alan, I said we both said West Virginia, who, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how good they are quite yet this year. It's going to be a very tough road environment, but Iowa State's interesting because they're going on the road to Houston this week, and they're only favored by 13.5 against a team that has looked just the worst team in the Big 12 for sure so far this year. So I think that's probably says more about their scoring ability than other things. But Iowa State's also a tough team that we gotta face on the road this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you and I, like you said, both said that that Iowa State, or sorry, that West Virginia was going to toughest, but I think we both said Iowa State would be in the top two.
For sure.
And I think that stands. If anything, you would say maybe Iowa State, probably flip that, and that might be the toughest road game, at least in conference. So that's going to be a scary game. But got to get past Colorado this week. Any other thoughts on the Big 12 and any of the teams and how they've started, gentlemen, before we move on?
All I'll say is that when you are going to listen to this, we won't even know what the Pac-12 is going to be, nor the Mountain West Conference. And if you remember, if you're an older fan of UCF, you remember the first time the Big 12 said no and then said yes. I am so thankful we are past all of that stuff, and the Big 12 is competitive in a significant amount of sports, because it is just like whiplash going on in conference realignment. And it's like the first time in forever we're not a part of it in a very, very nice way.
I think what I'll also say is, I think having 4 ranked teams in the conference is strong. I think that if we were able to win big this week, I know that Colorado's not a ranked opponent. We haven't necessarily beaten a ranked opponent this week, so far yet this season. But by the same token, other teams have been ranked when they beat opponents that don't even have a win on the season. And so I think that the attention that this game is going to provide for us, if we can win big, could catapult us into the rankings, or at least much closer than we are right now. Obviously, some other things would have to happen, but I think it shows the strength of this conference when a team like Kansas State can get surprised by in the conference and kind of get shellacked and still be ranked. I think that shows the strength of this conference.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm very glad we're in the conference, and it's nice to see this level of schedule, and I'm sure they're great universities, but I'd rather be playing the universities we are right now in football, specifically in sports, than FIU.
Yeah,
sorry, FIU. But
I will say though, we do need to be ranked soon. I'm getting a little worried on that front. Like you said, with the playoff and the way it's set up, like it kind of doesn't matter. We win the conference we're in, but by the same token, we have seen in the past that if you start to get into the top 25, week 6, week 7, it's a long road to climb up. And those teams that are in the preseason top 25, or at least in the first couple of weeks of the season, they have a much easier path to kind of rise up and, be able to still stumble and not completely be forgotten about. And that's the advantage ranking give you.
Well, it's interesting that, how they've done the rankings so far. First of all, I'm still convinced of this, that the people that are voting on top 25, most of them don't watch nearly even close to all the games. And they're basing it purely off their own judgment eyeball. So if you don't watch a game and you're purely just looking at a score. So I think, obviously not playing this week, they just, they didn't dock us, but they didn't help us at all. But then, it's interesting that, some of the rankings, like Boise State at 25, I thought was interesting, not because they're group of 5. I mean, I think they're an amazing program, but it was weird. They lost to Oregon, granted, very close game. Then they get ranked after beating Portland State, which I thought was a very just peculiar benefit to give them. If you're going to do that, why wouldn't you, give us, after obviously beating TCU, a Power 4 program. So it is interesting. And I know we only have 3 votes, but I get the sense that if we beat Colorado, and goes back to that eyeballs conversation, we're on big new kickoff and all the attention, especially around Colorado. If we win, and we win pretty handily, I could see us moving into the top 25. And then if not, I would say we'd be on the fringe. And then if you beat Florida, there's no way we're not in the top 25 after that, which, yes, it would be, I guess, like you said, Ben, like week 6. But, I would assume it's coming very soon if we win at least one or at least 2 more games.
Agreed. I mean, because the amount of teams, I mean, it's the majority of the top 25 right now are they're undefeated, right? So eventually every single week that number goes down, less and less teams are going to be undefeated. And so just win, baby, right? Like as long as we can just keep winning, as long as we can keep putting those W's on the board, that everything else will just kind of take care of itself. And that's what's so great about, like, to go back to what you said, Josh, about, just being in the conference and kind of being on the inside now with any type of talk of conference realignment, is that we have the ability now, we have the standing to control our own destiny, where, it is wild to even think that in 2017 and 2018, we didn't have a control of our own destiny, even with going undefeated. Like now, like you go undefeated, you're gonna play against the top teams in the country for the national championship, like for the right to play for the national championship. It's just the way it goes. And so it's great to have that opportunity now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's move on. I guess it's weird introducing myself, but I'll say my Oxymoronic stat of the week. So short this week, but I want the theme to be improvement. Yeah, there are definitely some things that have, I guess, appear worse than last year. Some of the things we talked about, obviously the secondary and things like that, but some big improvements that I thought were really cool to see. And yes, there is the caveat that we've only played in 3 games, so small sample size. And yes, 2 of those opponents were, much weaker opponents, but I still thought these were worth saying just because of how stark of a difference it was from last year. First of all, I have to point out, regardless of the circumstances around it, the rushing defense right now ranks number 4 in the country. So last year, if you remember, so right now we're giving up 63 yards a game. Last year we gave up 203 yards per game, and we were number 121 in the country. So yes, it's early. Yes, the opponents matter, but that is quite the stark difference. Regardless of the circumstances, I have to point that out. So number 4 in the country.
Half.
What was that?
It's like cut in half, basically, the amount of rushing.
More. Yeah.
By more, crazy.
Yeah. Then the next thing is both second half stats. So fourth quarter points, we rank number 11 in the country at 11 points per game in the fourth quarter. Last year, we averaged just 6.7 points, so nearly double the amount from last year. And then the second half as a total, the entire half, which I thought we were a really bad second half team last year, evidenced by Baylor and quite a few other games. Right now we're number 4 in the country in second half points at 24.5 points in the second half. And last year we averaged just 13.7. So once again, there's a lot of caveats there, but I thought those were some cool stats to point out, because I know we had our second half struggles last year. We had our fourth quarter struggles, and we obviously had our run defense struggles. So we'll see where that ends up as the sample size gets bigger. And then just the final thing, not about improvement, but I wanted to kind of, Ben, you had asked, like, how good is Colorado? So it's just an interesting thing about the offense. UCF is number 14 in the country in yards per play. We average 7.1 yards per play. So nearly a first down on every play, or semi close to it. Colorado is number 98 in the country. They average just 4.9 yards per play. So essentially, I mean, if they're doing a lot, I guess, dink and dunking, or they're just, having only a few explosive plays. So that makes me feel a lot better. I think a lot of their problems have just been masked by the fact that they have 3 wins, but it doesn't mean that the statistics show that they're actually good in those wins. So they've gotten more lucky and had bad opponents than anything. So those are my
points also to their weak rushing attack. Is like one of the reasons why we're so, like, we have such good yards per play is because during the rush, the rush plays, we're actually gaining, a lot of yards. as opposed to them, they're probably getting negative yards or just like 1 yard, 2 yards here and there. And then they're just relying on the plays down the field in the passing game. So,
which isn't usually a recipe for a good team. If you can't rush at all, though, you know what I mean? That's never, I mean, you could accuse us of being one dimensional, but we could still pass the ball and get the ball downfield in the air where they can't run the ball at all, seemingly.
Yeah.
I mean, to that point, if I remember correctly, if I was looking at, we're like in the 40s of passing yards or something.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, we're averaging about 200 passing yards per game, so it's not like it's anemic by any means. We can definitely pass the ball, and if anything, it's gotten better since week one. We're
41st. Yeah, I'm looking at now. So yeah, and look at TCU. We did everything we could to lose that game, and their lack of a running attack is a significant reason why we were able to come back.
Yep. All right, Josh. Well, you know what time it is. The sometimes funny fact of the week.
Yes, and so I have a question for you. Within the last 20 years, how many seasons over 500 do you think Colorado has? And I have a follow-up question.
Since the last 20 years?
Last 20 years, since 2004, how many winning seasons does Colorado have?
Well, I'll just say that I randomly do remember looking up, not for that like exact stat, but just looking at how they've fared. Because I know they kind of have a pretty good history in general, right? That they used to be a pretty nationally relevant team. So I was kind of looking when that stopped. And this was a couple years ago. I want to say it's like 2 or 3. I'm going to go with 3.
Dang, that was going to be my number 2. So I'm going to say 4. I'm going to be one more than that. 3 was going to be my number as well. Right.
I'm going to hold that and ask you one last question. How many years has it been since Colorado has won a bowl game against someone in the current P4?
How many years you said?
Mm-hmm.
Ben?
I don't know. 13. I have no idea.
I'll go 18.
Okay, so since 2004, including in 2004, if I made it 19 years, including 2004, they've only had 2 winning seasons. One big one, 10-4 in the Pac, 12 in 2016. They were highly rated there, and of course, 2004 they were 8-5. Otherwise, they have not made over. They only have 1 year of 7. Sorry, my apologies. We're gonna call it 3. I just saw the 7-6 in 2005.
There you go.
3. Alan is right. Sorry. Otherwise, they've only had 3 seasons over 7 wins.
Oh my God.
7 wins or over since 2004, and that year in 2004, they did win the Houston Bowl, but they did not beat a team that's a current P4. That would be 1999 in the Insight Bowl versus Boston College, where they were only a 7-5 team, but they obliterated Boston College in the Insight Bowl.
So that was, I think, 20-something years ago?
Yeah, it was something like that. I think that game was something like 60-20. It really was a shellacking at that. So it's been 25 years since they've won a bowl game versus a P4 team. They've actually only won 1 bowl game since then. That's and I say all that because a lot of they haven't seen a bowl game since 2020. And they really have only had since 2007 only 3 bowl games. I believe a lot of fans of Colorado now are believing that this year might be the year they get back to a bowl game. So, and good for them. I mean, it's not against us, but good for them for not being the 4 and 5 win team for the past 7-8 years.
Yeah, well, that's is it fair to say they're whether it's now or just in general, the past 2 decades, are they the worst team in the Power 4? I can't think of maybe like Rutgers or something that would be worse. Or I feel like Rutgers has had a couple of decent years. Are they the worst one?
I'd have to look that up, but
Record-wise, has Vandy done much? I don't know. Like,
Vandy, that's a good one. Yeah.
No,
Vandy,
no, Rutgers is not even close. But if you're talking 2004, they had the Greg Schiano years. They won 4 bowl games in a row.
2007,
No, they're
2008.
fine. Rutgers comparatively is fine. I'm checking Vanderbilt, but even they had some good years.
Trying to think of another dumpster program.
I mean, Colorado's got it.
Syracuse hasn't done much.
I would say Vanderbilt's probably close because they only had, objectively, they've only had 2 good years under James Franklin where they had 2, where they were ranked and had 2 bowl game wins. But you're talking, let me see here, just
what
one.
About the eyes, Illinois, Indiana, and Purdue. I guess Illinois has had a couple. They're ranked right now. I guess I can't really say that, but I feel like they're usually at the bottom.
From 85 or even more, from Vanderbilt from 83 to 2007 did not have a winning season. So yeah. And honestly, after for the most part, after James Franklin was gone, I think he went to Penn State after that, if I remember correctly. Nothing. So yeah, I'd say objectively, even if you go back, like Colorado at least had the Rashawn Salam and Cordell Stewart, and they had
that's much further back than 20 years ago, though.
Yeah, but if you're talking like you have 2 bowl wins or whatever, or maybe 3 since '83, and had 20 years plus of not having a winning season, I think objectively that's a worse off team.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Fair.
All right. Josh, you want to get into the quick update on other sports I don't watch?
I don't want to, only because we haven't done well last week, but I will. So we have UCF women's soccer had a no contest falling all the way out to Iowa State, and they did not even play the game. They did tie Arizona State 1-1, and I'm assuming they're going to stay over because they have a game on Thursday, I believe, at Kansas, and then Kansas State on the weekend. So they might just stick around in Kansas, I'm guessing, for a couple of days. Men's soccer didn't have a loss, was ranked, and they lose to number 21 JMU or James Madison. Man, they're scoring on everyone this weekend. We lost. We didn't score a point. They won 2-0. We're playing Georgia State next week, and women's volleyball beat Nevada in 2 nights 3-1. So they have 2 games and 2 wins, both at 3-1, and we're tied with Maryland 2-2, and unfortunately lost in a 5-setter 3-2. It doesn't get any easier for the women's volleyball team. They play number 10 Kansas next, and we're getting I will say we're getting closer to men's and women's basketball. Practice is starting soon, and I can tell you that because I'll be at one. So that's the itch is starting. We're getting close. Basketball's on its way.
We are coming closer and closer.
Yeah. Don't bite to resell them. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right. Well, that concludes our update on other sports. So with that, any final thoughts, gentlemen?
I'm just super excited for the game this week, mainly because of the attention that it's going to get. I know that our fans are going to be rocking in the Big Noon Kickoff show, and most importantly, they're going to be rocking in the Bounce House 3:30 Saturday. So I'm excited for the opportunity to show the amount of people that are going to be watching this that may be casual fans or not know much about this team right now, just what we're all about. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's going to be a great weekend. There's a lot of UCF sports to be played across the university, inclusive of this just humongous game of football. Also want to thank Kyle Bono, every single Bono in the Central Florida area.
Whole Bono family.
The whole Bono family for everything you've done at UCF as players and keeping baseball alive. 3 generations of baseball players is just amazing and wonderful and awesome, and I love that. I until I dug a little into the background, I didn't realize that when I was doing some prep for the podcast. So I think that's awesome, and I'm sure if you have if you play baseball, there's a Bono that can help you play baseball. Or can train you in that. So thanks to his great guest, a great interview. It's going to be a great week and a great weekend. That's all I got.
Yeah, same. I'm super excited. This is definitely one of the games I've been most excited about on the schedule, even before the year, just because of the hype around it. I'm really hoping we just end the Colorado hype train this weekend. And obviously after a bye week, I'm hungry for some more UCF football. So with that being said, go Knights.
Charge on.